Groucho Marx. Gary Marx. Oh, okay, he's up in Scandinavia. I worked with his wife. He just passed away. So, guys, are we all set, Martha?
So.
And we have, who do we have again on line?
Tammy and Lois.
Tammy and Lois online. Can you hear us okay, Tammy and Lois?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. My understanding is doctor will come a little later when she gets done with class. Okay. So I will, excuse me, open the meeting of the Opeka County Department of Human Services, Wednesday, September 3rd. It is 3 minutes after 5 o'clock. This meeting and all meetings, other meetings of this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting. Roll call shows that we have sufficient for a quorum here. And we have 2 virtual, Lois and Tammy. That's it. Oh, you guys have to. We have a quorum today. We need to review and approve our agenda as handed out. Can we have a motion to that effect, please?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the agenda as handed out. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Do I hear Tammy?
Aye.
All right. Very good. Any contrary? Hearing none, so moved. All righty. We have the minutes of the previous meeting of August 6, 2025. Any additions or corrections to that minutes?
I would move to accept the minutes as written.
Motion made to accept the minutes as written for the August 6th meeting.
Second.
Motion is seconded. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion, additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 On the contrary, so moved. Public comment? I don't see anyone from the public here. So we will move on to our program presentation. Mary, if you'd be kind enough to introduce us.
Sure. So in the month of August, we had Tracy Shermetsky, who is our child welfare manager. So she presented for the child welfare programming that we have within Human Services. So that being one part of the CYU team. Lauren is here this evening from that team as well as the Youth Justice Foster Care Kinship Manager to talk about our youth justice programming. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lauren.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren Young, and as Mary said, I supervise youth justice, foster care, and kinship care for the county. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you about our youth justice program. It is a mandated program by the state. So we receive referrals from law enforcement officers, or entities, I should say, schools, and sometimes parents. So the referrals from law enforcement are delinquency referrals, which are criminal acts, but completed by youth, so 0 to 16. We consider 17-year-olds adults in the state of Wisconsin. So I just said 0. I meant 10 to 17. Sorry.
I was wondering what those
sorry. So we receive those referrals from law enforcement entities and schools, and then we have an intake worker who looks at the referral. They schedule a meeting with the family and the youth to discuss the circumstances surrounding the referral. What are the family dynamics? What's going on at school? Are there mental health diagnoses? Are there physical diagnoses? Anything like that? So really kind of like a thorough investigation of what's going on behind that referral so that we can make an educated recommendation up to the district attorney's office. So we have 40 days to do that. And then once it gets to the district attorney's office, they can either agree with our decision. So our decision can be, we're going to counsel and release it, which means that perhaps it's the youth's first referral, or perhaps, you know, they already paid restitution to the victim, or whatever that looks like. We've made the decision that, you know, the counseling part of it has been sufficient and there's no need for YJ involvement. Or we can do a informal agreement, which is called a deferred prosecution agreement. And that has a set of rules that the youth has to follow. Maybe it's curfew, maybe it's, you know, mental health counseling, maybe it's no contact with the victim, maybe it's restitution. And as long as the youth follows all of those rules for the period in which the DPA is in existence, which is usually 6 to 12 months, then that case would be considered successfully closed. If the youth violates the terms of that deferred prosecution agreement, then we can send that up to the district attorney's office and they can go ahead and file a petition for either or for a delinquency or for a JIPS, which is a juvenile in need of protection or services. So that would be for truancies or for out of control youth. We have another option would be to request the district attorney's office to file a formal petition. The ones that I just said, either a JIPS or a delinquency, and then the youth would be on court-ordered supervision for a year. And then we tailor those rules of supervision to that youth and the offense, taking the victim's needs into account. And then really the worker just works with them over the period of the order, just making sure that they're getting services that they need in order to, you know, kind of like address the situation at hand and make sure that we're working toward rehabilitation. We have one intake worker, so she receives all of the intakes and makes the recommendations to the district attorney's office. And then we have 3 ongoing workers who work with the kids that are on the DPAs and on the formal court orders. One of our ongoing positions is currently vacant. However, we did just extend an offer to an individual earlier this week, and she accepted. So that position is now full, and she's going to start on the 22nd. So we're excited about that. The other component that we do for youth that are on DPAs or formal court orders, we have 2 different youth groups that we operate and facilitate. One of them is called MRT, which is moral recognition therapy. And that really focuses on those antisocial thought processes, and so decreasing those and increasing moral reasoning. So it's kind of like a 12-step program, so almost like Alcoholics Anonymous, but really drilling down, like, okay, so I did this thing, why did I do this thing? And let's analyze, you know, the steps that happened up until doing this thing and how can I do things differently moving forward. The other group that we run is called Positive Action, and that is a group that increases self-esteem, excuse me, and self-efficacy. So it's really getting kids in a group and talking about, you know, what is my self-concept, and is my self-concept negative right now, or is it positive? And what things can I do in order to, you know, make my self-concept more positive? So we have had 2 successful groups of MRT and 1 successful group of Positive Action. I'll remind you that both of those programs were funded by a YJ Innovation Grant that was a couple years ago. So it's sustaining the programs, you know, up until now. We still have a lot of materials that we can use and a lot of incentives that we can use for the kids. When they complete MRT, we take them to, I think it's called Badgerland Sports Park. So they can go do, Badger Sports Park. So they can do like the, all of the games and the go-karts and stuff like that. So they really enjoy that. But it's really neat to see them get together as a group. And as the weeks go on in the group, they really start to hold each other accountable. Like, hey, you said this last week, like, or are you really being truthful about this? So it's really cool to watch. And all of, myself and the other YJ staff really enjoy facilitating those. So that is all I have. Do you guys have any questions?
Any comments or any questions?
I have a question. Is there, once they complete these programs, is there some follow-up or what are we hoping for outcomes on a longer term basis than, just complete?
So it's really meant to decrease recidivism, especially the MRT group is to really, like I said, analyze where those antisocial thought processes are coming from and kind of get rid of those and be on a more, pro-social, like healthy track moving forward.
I love groups. It's the way to go, especially if you're talking longer term, it's because of the peer involvement. You're gonna do a lot more than a therapist or a social worker, whatever. If you have your own peer group talking to you and saying anything and confronting you on an issue, they're more active and groups. Like, it'd be wonderful if you had more, especially in mental health and LD and stuff on that. So this is wonderful. And I think I do remember, because I've been on the board long enough, when you may have gotten initially a grant or something. And I'm glad we have enough materials and such to keep it going. If we have something where we're running short of monies and stuff, are we anticipating being able to have money to continue with these things? Because you're talking, I think that's going on outing and stuff like this is so important as well. I mean, I'm hoping that we support that and we continue to keep that going.
I'm hoping that the monies that we were awarded in the initial grant will sustain the program for quite some time. Yeah. I mean, we bought like a bunch of workbooks and a bunch of incentives and, I think that we'll have plenty for at least a couple years, I would estimate. Yeah.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
It is. That's really wonderful. Any other comments or questions or anything?
I just want to say yay for grant writing. I mean, good job.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do. It's
No.
not.
No. All righty then. With no more questions or comments or anything, Eric, we thank you very much for coming this evening on that, and we'll move on to our general board business. We're looking at discussion and possible action regarding youth justice innovation grant update and request to add position to the DHS organizational chart effective January 1, 2026. And very quickly, can we get a copy of the actual? When I started on the board, we got a big spreadsheet that actually showed all the positions with all of the individuals on it. So we knew, and also it's hard to keep updated. Okay, let's put it that way. You can't keep it updated, but we can get a snapshot of that. I found that very helpful to have that, because then you saw the departments, you saw the people and the positions as well, which was kind of helpful to see, what you had, where everyone fit in. But it was a full, like, legal size spreadsheet.
Absolutely. Martha updates that on a monthly basis, and I saw that you just queued up the update for September, so.
There you go. That would be wonderful if you would. I found that on that. So anyways, how about the discussion here on the Youth Justice Innovation Grant?
All right, so I will get us launched, and then I will tag team this a little bit with Lauren here. So, so our specific ask this evening relative to this agenda item is to add a position, as the agenda item suggests, to our org chart effective January 1, 2026. So this position and what prompts us to be able to make this ask is that we as in Lauren, myself, and then some of the youth justice team members, and then one of the team members kind of took the lead in kind of having the conversations with Lauren and I. saw the Youth Justice Innovation Grant as an opportunity for our department to be able to do something kind of unique here. So what we detailed in the application specifically and what this position would do is by design, we're looking to divert youth from the youth justice system by adding a position into the org chart that would specifically work with youth. And we talk a lot in the youth justice or in kind of our child welfare programming and in other programs about trying to catch youth low, trying to catch them before the behavior has escalated into a space where now we're reacting in more of a punitive way, or we're reacting with needing court intervention or involvement. So by design, this position would be working with youth ages 10 to 17. Really focusing, 10 to 13, I think is what we had identified in the application itself.
Focusing on
13, ages 10 to 13. And those youth would be youth that would be referred to us either through our schools or through law enforcement as youth that are at risk of entering the youth justice system, maybe because they're intersecting with, there are the behaviors, or they're intersecting with things that are just causing alarm to our law enforcement team members, where they're having to respond either to an event or to a home, or to something where we can connect with those youth through a dedicated position that will engage the youth in pro-social activities, that will do a variety of things with the youth to try to help and steer the youth into positive decision making. And with that, I know Lauren had detailed some other things specifically in the grant about using the YAZI tool and about using some other assessment mechanisms with the youth. So maybe I can turn it over to you and you can touch a little bit on that.
Sure. So the YAZI is our risk assessment tool that we use for every referral that comes into the department. And we do what's called a pre-screen for every referral. So during the intake period, we do a pre-screen, which assesses the youth's risk for recidivism. And then if the youth goes on to court-ordered supervision, we do the full YAZI that also computes the risk for recidivism that we can add to our court report. But really that pre-screen I think would be helpful in this space, so that we kind of know where we're at as far as what the youth's risk is, so that we can identify where the areas of need are, and we can address that through this position.
Yeah, so we, through the application process, we connected with our law enforcement partners, with some of our school partners, and really sought their support in collectively coming together about this position and what specifically we could offer through this position. So really, again, just trying to get ahead of intersecting with youth at a higher level that requires some court intervention. We really want to be able to catch youth low. We want to be able to dedicate a position to having a smaller caseload, to intentionally working with youth 3 to 4 hours a week. Whether that there'll be a balance with that. Sometimes, during the course of the summer, maybe we're more actively able to dedicate time to youth. During the school year, we'll be intersecting with youth in the school system, as well as outside of the school system. I can pause now, and maybe we can take some questions, or help kind of.
Anyone have any? Patsy?
So I don't know anything about this Youth Justice Innovation Grant, but typically grant funds end. So how long would this position be supported financially?
Sure. So what we did is we wrote into the grant for an award in total of $100,000. That doesn't get us far. $100,000, and so that specifically is to cover the position, all salary, fringe benefits for the position, as well as a computer and some other equipment and training, and then some incentives for the youth that this individual will be working with. So we were awarded that particular sum for 2026. In 2027, we would have the opportunity to reapply. Then it pares down to a 75%. So it would be a $75,000 grant. We would have to figure out the match and bring in the other 25,000, assuming that the need is that. I mean, there's some of the incentives, maybe we'll have some spillover from 26 to 27. We'll already have the computer equipment, some of those things. And then in 2028, it would pare down then again to 50%. So to kind of speak to your point of, right, there's an end. And so the goal of this would be to reduce the number of referrals that we're receiving. And so then to be able to create that balance, you know, within the space of, okay, maybe we don't need as much somewhere else. So.
Scott?
So are you thinking it would, if it becomes successful, you maybe as the match goes down and we would end up having the whole thing on our budget, would you anticipate trying to keep that? If it looks like it's successful, I mean, I'm looking long term, which is a typical thing we do here on the board.
Yeah, so conceivably, there's two things that could happen. One is we hit the end of the 3-year mark, and there might be through attrition, through, you know, another position, a vacancy that's created. Maybe we embed this within our department, and you know, as we continue to reassess what things look like. The other piece is we'd be coming to the board asking to add the position and figuring out the funding source of that.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan, especially if we just looking long term, you at least got that on your plate, because I mean, these grants, like Kathy said, they end, and then all of a sudden, what do we do now? So.
And I think often these grants are a wonderful opportunity for us to be innovative, right, with our programming, and to try and to really develop a program. And then, you know, we'll have goals that we'll work through with DCF, provided that this group supports the position moving forward, that, you know, we would.
Right. I guess if it, from my perspective, if you get it going and it's with this grant money and it looks like it's quite successful, obviously you want to try to keep it in this DHS department and the Youth Justice Department because it's doing good. You know, and so I think that's a good way to start it.
Yeah, we also.
With somebody else's money, as they say, you know, I mean, grant money is, you know, we don't have to figure out some kind of budgetary, you know, number and then and keep it ongoing for 3 years and then, you know, that type of thing. So I think it's a good idea.
Is it competitive for each year then, the second and third year as well, or do we already have guarantees of the 3 year?
So it was competitive for this year, and then, yeah, and then for next year and the following year. I don't know that I would consider it competitive. It's not a guarantee. We have to, right, if we're meeting our goals, we anticipate we would get the grant.
You have to basically give feedback to them, showing what you have accomplished. So that goes into the questions on this number. You got any numbers of clients you're talking about? Number of kids you're going to be processing through, or what's the best number for best practice for this for a program?
So one of the things I think we put into the application was working with approximately 6 youth.
Okay.
So really trying to pare down the cases that are, I hate to refer to a youth as a case, right? But
okay.
but working intentionally with that number of youth, because there are also other pockets that will be that we wrote into the grant, like some training for law enforcement in our schools, really trying to bring that collaboration back to our team.
In that first year, obviously, there's a lot more upfront things you have to do. As you said, collaboration with other outside agencies. Now, it's a voluntary program, I take it?
It would be,
Voluntary?
yes.
And then historical, are there other counties, agencies that are running similar programs that you have some knowledge as to outcomes?
So we kind of find that out throughout the term of the grant, because we do quarterly check-ins with all of the counties that were awarded the monies for the specific category that we chose. So for the diversion, and then that's when we get to see like what their proposal was, and you know what their numbers look like and things like that. So
the idea was, is there history to it? Were there pilot programs prior to this, or some innovative county was doing similar program that you can look back and why did the state decide that says this is a good program? I mean, you must base it on something. And that's why I was asking if there was some historical to it that says they've tried this here, tried this there, and they've had some success, you know, a certain percentage of success on this. That's the only question. That was the question.
We looked, there's another state that has some evidence-based practices from a diversion programming perspective. So a portion of this grant application was modeled off of what another state has done.
Yeah. And they've had obviously some
Some
good things
some
coming out
fantastic success.
on that sort of thing. Now, have we talked that you obviously done budgets? I mean, you've been looking at your budget. And I know HR at the meeting I was at, they were talking about two positions, one later this year and then one starting in January. Is that part of this then?
Yeah, the second of those is this one, and then the first is one that Kim who just ran
We
away.
just, yeah,
One that she had presented on.
presented on that. So HR was thinking positively on the two when I was at that committee meeting. Just so you're aware, within our budget, there were 17 requests, if you remember. Well, perhaps, as you wouldn't know, but there were 17 requests,
I know there was
17
a lot.
requests for new positions for next year. For the whole county, yes.
We're gonna have to do some
Um,
hearing, that's what I.
Yeah, they say that every year.
Well, I-
Scott. But it's, and we only have $300,000 that we're having over and above that we're allowed to do on the levy or some darn thing. I don't know, some magical thing. But of the 17, just to be aware of that the two that you presented to them somewhere along the line to HR was supported by the HR committee on that. And then to finance it would go to, obviously, for some final things, but the fact that we're one of very few, so you presented very well, must have, because they went along with it.
You have grant funds.
Yeah, yeah, so we're very, we're fortunate, and the grants help, for that, but then the real question, and I did at that meeting speak up and said that if indeed it was worthwhile, we would figure out, as you just said, Mary, we would figure out some way of shifting things around, whatever, to help support that program, if indeed we find in the next 3 years. That's a worthwhile program. We just don't take a good program, money runs out, and we drop it. I mean, that's stupid. We shouldn't start in the first place if we're not going to support it. It's good. But how you're going to support it is by shifting some things around, perhaps having fewer clients going into the youth justice program on the other end, as you're diverting, and that's the whole purpose, correct? Divert them. I'm going into this, and it is a voluntary program, totally voluntary, which is really nice in that age group to step in, get the families involved and everything. So,
Can I just ask,
yes,
how many kiddos typically in a year go into the youth justice program? Yes, 6 just sounded, I was surprised by the number of 6 that
Yeah.
you'll be working with, and I'm just wondering how many youth justice kids in a year typically.
So on average, we get about, I'd say like 115 referrals or so a year. So sometime, I mean, give or take, it just kind of depends. There was one year where we just got slammed and there were a lot more than that. But other years there's less, so it just kind of depends.
Do you think it's 50-50 that get recommended to continue after their evaluation and maybe 50% don't
So
continue through the system?
it really depends because we don't, so the risk assessment tool is like, it's just that, it's one tool, right? So then also we use like the interview that we do with the youth and of course the requests of the victim. But I would say maybe like 50 or so go, 50% or so would go on some form of supervision. I mean, I'd have to look at my numbers to give you like an exact amount, but I would say,
Well, and there's a couple of different ways that youth can intersect with us within our YJ system. One could be just that we get the referrals directly from law enforcement. Sometimes what we find is that there are a lot of citations that are issued in various municipalities, right? Where we then maybe there's been 3 citations issued, and then the youth comes to us with now there's a new concern, and we have these 3 citations. So what we're trying to do is work through with our law enforcement, and this grant provides the opportunity to do that, where we're coming together and we're really trying to even divert from those citations being issued, because so some of those things I think are just helpful and important for us to just consider.
and I know law enforcement is really supportive of this position as well because, they have their what you would call frequent flyers, where they're constantly going to a certain house or what have you, and, they're struggling because maybe they don't wanna, send a referral up to YJ for this kid, and they know that they need services, but there's no other way to connect them, so then they're gonna have to make a referral. Whereas with this position, we can, intervene on the front end so that we're not having to make that YJ referral.
So what it comes down to is that they can earlier on refer people to you. Okay. What kind of staff numbers do you have for the ongoing? I mean, you've
So I
got
have
enough.
3 ongoing staff.
I'm just saying for the current youth justice group. My terminology is old. Your department, your unit, I should say, your unit's up. What kind of ratio do you have? I mean, do you have a comfortable ratio of what you currently have to provide for those 100 and some type of referrals? I mean, are you well staffed now?
So right now, we are good, but of course that can change. I mean, we've had caseloads as low as like 10 up to caseloads as high as, like 18, 20. So it just kind of fluctuates depending on, and a lot of times it's the season too, like summertime, we usually have a lull. But then when school starts and you get the DCs at school and the criminal damage to properties, and so then that's when those pick up more.
And when you record your numbers, I remember discussing it years ago with one of the workers, a friend of mine, and every I'll say citation, every criminal referral thing included that as numbers for them in a sense. Whereas we always did, you had a client and the client had a whole bunch of other, whether it was behavioral health or whether it was a psychiatrist or a nurse, whatever, it didn't matter. We had the one client with all these services. He always did, when he did his presentation for his numbers, every single juvenile event was a case for him. And that's how they did the numbers. So you're doing actually, these are, 100 plus clients, you get the referrals. And in this case, you're talking 6 actual bodies that you have. It won't be 3, and then there's a couple of them have some other attachment to them. You understand what I'm saying?
So there's the intake worker, and then there's the 3 ongoing workers, and then this would be a separate position. Yes, and then myself. So, yeah.
And so you're talking 3 plus 1 plus this one here now. So you only have like 4 people currently that are dealing with that number you gave us.
Correct.
And those are individual clients. Each one of them is an individual client, not charges.
Not yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
So there's
the number I gave you earlier regarding the referrals, that I'm not saying that 115 kids were referred to the department, because sometimes it's the same kid for multiple referrals.
Yeah, that's what that's
Is that what you're getting at? Okay, so yes, so the same youth can get multiple referrals, but we've had roughly 115 or so referrals in the past over the course of a year. Yeah.
One person can have multiple.
Correct.
Obviously, and that's how my friend always presented that. He goes, oh my God, I got hundreds of these, whatever. But he only may have had much fewer individuals versus all these different referral parts.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry for the confusion.
No, I'm more confused. It's my confusion and not being able to express what I'm thinking. Any other questions or comments or anything?
I have some comments,
Please.
Kevin. Excuse me. So I think that I would like to see some kind of goal setting. I mean, you have these clients that you're working with and you're working on diversion. What about working with them to set goals for themselves, like graduating from high school? What are they going to do when they finish high school? Are they going to go on a technical school? I think it might help if they had somebody that was supporting them with how they're going to move on from this program instead of just, working with them to fulfill the goals of this grant. And then when you're done with them, then they're just like, okay, what am I going to do now? Like, kind of like flounder. I guess I kind of see them like floundering because you're trying to do a diversion part and you're taking them to this sports park or whatever, but what about after that? So I'd like to see some kind of work with the schools or school counselors to try and set some long-term goals for themselves. They just might need somebody to help them with that. So I just think I would like to see more of a supportive role in having these kids that are going through this program set some long-term goals for themselves. And I'd like to see that be a part of this grant where they can, see where they're going to be in like 5 or 10 years. And hopefully, they're not going to be in jail or prison. I mean, isn't that what the goal is, to try and keep these kids from getting into more trouble? So I think if we can do some, goal setting with long-term goals, that I think that would be much more effective than just, what you're doing. I guess that's just my opinion, because I think that they need a much more support in seeing where they're going to be in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, so there's two pieces to that I think we can offer in response to that. One is part of the grant, as Lois suggests, is we have to set goals. And so we'll work with DCF to set specifically what those goals are. We did include in the narrative of the grant goal setting and working with the youth on goals. And so that is a piece of that is part of what I anticipate will be part of our larger goal setting with DCF, as far as making sure that the youth are connected to those goals and have a path forward with respect to the goals that they set. The other piece to the grant that I'm trying to just process through in my mind here is looking to connect the youth. I'm just trying to draw back on the application and how we work through the narrative, is working to connect the youth with service providers that will then sustain a relationship with the youth longer term. So.
Is there a time frame? I don't want to step in this, Lois, but is there a time frame that, I belong to this program and I'm 9 years old, and can I be in this program for how long?
We may have youth that we'll work with for shorter periods of time, 18 weeks, and then we might have youth that we work with for 6 months. I think it really is going to have to be.
Does the program itself have a limit on it?
18 to 36 weeks from the evidence-based research that we found within the state that we modeled a piece of it on is about the average. Okay,
and about the average for this more intensive program. And then what Lois is talking about is, now that we've invested heavily into this person, and the time frame is now drawing to a close, are we anticipating, do we have a support system beyond that? And I think you mentioned a little bit, Mary, on this, how you connect up and everything. But is that something that you may want to come back to us a little bit and say, hey, this is something we need to develop as well, so that that investment of time and energy and money into an individual isn't just dropped off? I mean, you don't cure things that quickly always. I mean, it just doesn't work that way, does it?
And Lauren touched on our groups and the opportunity to continue to engage youth through those avenues as well.
So I'll just speak to your point too, Lois, regarding the group that I spoke about earlier, MRT. Once you get towards step like 10, 11, we're having the youth identify, well, actually around step 4, they identify short-term goals. And then the goal is for them to meet their short-term goals by, step 6, step 7. And then they identify what their long-term goals are going to be. And then underneath each one of their long-term goals, it's how am I going to achieve this goal? Who is a natural support that, can help me meet this goal? And, what time frame am I looking at? So that, and the youth have these books that they keep, their workbooks they keep, so they have everything laid out of, what their goals are, how they're going to achieve them, and who is their helper.
That sounds good. I'd still like to see something more long-term where you just can like check back with them. Just, like they're on the program for 18 weeks and then, like if they can check back like at like I don't know, 6 months later or a year later, just to make sure that their support system is still in place and that their goals that they've set for themselves are still on track. So I'm just concerned about, providing all these services. And then when the funding's not there anymore, then, it's like, okay, well, you're on your own. And, some of them just may not have that support to begin with. So I think, if we're going to be continuing with this program and hopefully the funding is, obviously it's not 100% a year from now in 27, and then the following year, but I still think that if we're going to start something, I still think there needs to be some kind of a follow-up with them, if that's possible. And that might be something that you can write into the grant, for the next 2 years, is that we're going to, continue to follow up with them to make sure that they're meeting their goals and their support system is still in place. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tammy, you have anything?
No, I'm just listening.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. On that, and I think a very important point was made here, that we need to ensure that the efforts being made to assist a person isn't just dropped after the 18 months or whatever it might be. That we continue to provide that support, and it's an investment in a person's life, and all of a sudden for it to drop off. I think of foster care, unfortunately, you turn 18, whatever it is, and sometimes years ago they used to kind of dump you out of the system, and I don't know what they do now, but it would be important, I think, to start thinking about what do we do with the people who graduate from this, and how do we keep in contact and develop some program for them as well to be able to continue to benefit from what you've trained, what you've learned, that kind of thing. Well, anyways, any other comments or anything? Patsy, yeah.
I do appreciate, in addition to that personal growth is built into the program. Some of the things you described about learning to be introspective, learning to self-evaluate, those are tools that they'll take with them as they make decisions when they're older. And so I think it is important to follow through with this group of individuals, but to give them those lifelong tools is at least going to help them if they use them.
Absolutely. And even for them to be able to identify natural supports and people that they can go to, because frankly, we do a good job with a lot of things, but we can't be there all the time, and county services can't be there all the time, and they need to be able to reach out, to their natural supports and find some help, because we can't just hover over them all the time. So, so teaching them those things is really
Very good. So what you need this evening is basically a motion that we support this grant, everything in the position that comes with the grant. Is that what basically we need to do this evening, to be supportive of it? So I would certainly entertain anyone that wishes to step forward and say that we are supportive of the Youth Justice Innovation Grant request, and beginning for January 1st, 2026, a position. We have a Cam. Cam made the motion for that. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay, Jody seconds it. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion at all? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any contrary? So moved. Thank you very much for that. It was, and when you have these sorts of things, just a quick comment, so we don't get too long today. If you're thinking of these things, these are innovative. This is going, they said, this is a good reason to belong to a board, is that you're doing something different and innovative versus the same old type stuff. And when you start talking about it among yourselves or start looking at the grant, it'd be nice to occasionally hear about it in advance. And then we'd hear and get some of the excitement you have as well for asking for the grant. And it comes to us here at this, we have some questions, obviously. will feel more involved or informed as to what you're doing, something innovative like this. It's real positive, very positive. Cam, do you have to look you out on this?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very, very much.
Nice to see you all again.
Yes, yes. That's good.
I'll leave you with a question though, and I don't know if it was covered or not. I was trying to listen intently. Is there an existing program of some sort that could fit that period after? You know, would we have to create something fresh and brand new to carry people through after their graduation from your program, or is there an existing program that does that?
Not that I am aware of. I mean, there are, you know, independent living programs, but those are specifically for foster youth that age out at 18. But not that I'm aware.
We dream about
Right.
having youth mentors and, you know, and
Right.
individuals that would carry longer term. In my prior role, we worked, our youth mentors worked with youth and they may work with alongside the youth for a year. They may work alongside the youth for 2 years. And, you know, it may vary just, and really just to be that constant kind of side by side support to be checking in and yeah, there's some significant, good that can come of that.
Some sort of like group setting, like monthly, you know, you graduate and then it's like a monthly
Right.
support group where it's just not as high maintenance from an admin standpoint, but still a safe place.
And could
Check
that be
in.
something-
Check in.
Obviously, some of these kids are gonna be younger, so it might be tough. But at least with the older genre, could that be self-facilitated? Like, hey, somebody guides it, or you have a mentor within the group and say, hey, on Wednesdays for the next 6 months, you're gonna meet together. Should you want to, at least send the people that are interested in getting continued help at it amongst their friends.
In fact, I ran a consumer group for mentally ill on Saturday afternoons. And it was a consumer group. I was there mainly to facilitate somewhat, but the group themselves discussed what they felt at that time and everything and shared stories among themselves and everything. And we don't have anything like that, do we? Or any kind of consumer group with some facility?
I mean, we have,
I'm thinking anywhere, do we have?
like I said, like we have facilitators for our groups,
For
but
your-
it's not like completely member sustained
Okay,
or run, whatever you
yeah,
wanna,
it's consumer
it.
type group.
because some days we have to herd cats, right? You know, because they're all over the place, you know, but
That's a good suggestion, Cam, that. But you've got the thinkers, you know, you got the professionals to think about those things as to what's maybe needed to give them the best opportunity to succeed. Because we have a great investment we're trying to make in this particular, all of the programs. And we should do everything we can ensure success.
one thing I do want to mention too is the first group that we graduated of MRT, one of the youth from that group came back to be a mentor in the second group, and that worked really well. Especially when we were doing like activities in the workbook, he would go around and say, no, this is what this means. And, you know, like, are you being honest about this and things like that. So that was really cool to see.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Groups work wonderful. They really can. They make a big difference. Well, thank you, Cam, for that.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
that.
me. You guys have a good night.
Take care. Have a good evening. All right. We have that taken care of, don't we, Terry? We're in good shape for this. Appreciate all the information. It really is helpful. We need to move on to finance now. Income statement overview.
Um, So within the packet, Heidi has again provided an overview, which there was nothing in particular that she indicated through her messaging to highlight for this particular month. So I didn't have it. I mean, we're tracking consistent with last year.
Percentage wise, we're doing okay. And we're not anticipating a huge surplus.
No, unfortunately, we have two particular expense items that would take
Kinda high,
away any
yeah.
hopes for a surplus, and they're necessary expenses, so.
Any questions at all regarding the actual income statement and all? Thoughts? Otherwise, we'll go to the payment register and review of the bills. Anything in particular jumps out at us, Mary, as for the actual bills?
Nothing, nothing that I noted for this particular month.
And our out-of-home placements and everything are just kind of rolling along with it as they have been.
Yeah, the ones that I previously brought to this board are continue.
What I've always done for when we review the bills, even though it's always after the fact, I've always asked that we make a motion second. We have it approved. We have reviewed the bills and be placed on file, basically, for that. So would someone be kind enough to make the motion that we did review the bills? Doctor, you're shaking your head. Sure. Okay. That sounds like an affirmative. I'm thinking the body language says affirmative on that. So we have a motion. Do we have a second to that?
I'll second.
Oh, there we go. Lois, that was a second from Lois. We have a
Yes.
motion and a second that we have reviewed the bills and we'll be placing them on file. Any further discussion or questions at all? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any contrary, so moved. Very good. Personnel updates, what do we have going there? Any drastic changes?
You know, the current recruitments and things that we have in line should be as noted in the packet. I just want to see if there are any updates. Oh, we did extend we started our crisis case manager, right? Bailey would have started actually just yesterday.
Okay.
Tuesday, yeah. So Bailey started yesterday, and then our comprehensive community services facilitator will also, do you know the start?
22nd.
Okay. And then the youth justice case manager, that we just received an accepted offer on that. We did some ongoing case manager interviews today, and I believe are looking to slot one additional one for Friday. So I think if there's anything else that's more of a recent update that would have been beyond this. Can't think of anything.
Family engagement specialist.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so that Crystal's last day is this Friday. But we did just extend an offer to an individual today, so we're waiting to see if she accepts or not.
So we're doing pretty well overall, personnel number wise. I have to apologize. It was yesterday we got word of the interviews today, and I had something already scheduled. Yeah. So I couldn't make it.
Shorter notice than okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Next 3 o'clock.
thank you.
That's all right. We've discussed before, is there really, okay, budgets are tight as to whether or not we really need to have for non-managerial interviews, we need to have a couple supervisors there. So, well, from, you know, the committee like this, and also usually it's HR, correct? That come. And so there's 2 of us there, and obviously you get paid a per diem, and we also get, you know, mileage and whatever that is. But the question I've always raised is the fact, and I've often said it in some of the other committees I'm on, is that the staff is who has to work with it, and the staff in turn makes a decision, and they're the ones that have to deal with it day after day, whoever we hire. So, and unfortunately, a lot of the same questions come from the supervisors, the same supervisors. And it was like, these are for line staff, these are for people that are obviously being supervised by the staff members who are interviewing them. And they make the ultimate decision anyways. And I often question the need of having one of us have to sit in on those as well. So I'm still struggling trying to figure out what we can and cannot do regarding that, because to me, non-managerial staff, ongoing staff, supervisors, director, those kind of individuals to be making and will and do make the decision anyways. Those 2 supervisors don't make any decision, we make some comments. So, you know, do that. And it's a large, actually not huge amount for the big picture, for when it comes right down to it, we're asking everyone else to tighten their belts and everything. And is there some ways that we don't have to spend money on our end of it as well? I mean, that makes some sense too. So. Anyhow, so I apologize, I wasn't able to make this one.
So from an interviewee's point of view, was blessed enough to have an interview with this department years ago. And it was quite a lot to walk into a room full of people when it was kind of I wouldn't say a frontline position, but it was not in any way a managerial type position. So I think cutting down on the number of people in the room would be okay.
Yeah,
And it's currently embedded into our policy,
it's part of the
as a major
policies.
policy, even my position being involved. And so Kim and I will kind of split that role. So now both of us don't go, right? Because that just also feels like a lot.
Yeah, it's usually one or two supervisors as well, and then you have Mary or Kim. And then there's the two county board supervisors there and everything. I remember a probation parole interview where they had 5, and you sat in a chair, not even a table in front of you, you just sat in a chair, and these 5 people are interviewing you as fresh out of college. And I didn't plan to take the job anyways. It was so. But it was practice. You know how they gotta practice some things. But anyhow, that's one of the items I think this winter. Legislative and judicial also takes care of some of the chapter 2 things, which governs our board members. And then HR obviously is another area we have to look into in order for you guys to be connected in that. But that's a winter project after our budget, everything else we have to deal with this fall. But yeah, it doesn't make sense. And it's yeah, they have to work with it day to day. It's their responsibility to deal with that. So anyhow, so we're doing well. We're pretty well staffed, and we're getting obviously good candidates because we're offering, which is super on that. Anything else in that area of personnel? Or can we just go on down to your report?
We can go on down.
Okay.
The only thing I actually had, well, 2 things relative to my update. One is that we, as of today, have Wi-Fi in the 600 building. So it's a separate Wi-Fi line. So when we were doing, having some conversations, Kim and I with Ron and Brent and the team there, we realized that there was probably a more cost-effective and maybe even a better option than what we had talked about even in last month's meeting, to get some Wi-Fi in the building. So we're just waiting for the repeater, which Ron indicated earlier today would be installed later this week. So the repeater to just boost kind of the signal within the building. Within the building. So huge step there. And then Heidi has everything that she needs for the budget to prepare the DHS portion of it. So I'm waiting to hear back from her as to when she would like to, it has an opening to be able to present to this board. So I know we talked about that just a little bit before the meeting. So I'll be back with, I don't know if the October date, we have an early October meeting. But I don't know whether Heidi will call for a special or ask for this board to come together for a special meeting to talk through the budget or not. So
have you presented to finance?
No.
Would they be expecting you to present?
I don't know if Heidi had planned to present here first and then finance.
Okay.
So that may be what prompts a request for a special meeting.
It was in law enforcement. They invited me to that meeting with finance.
Oh.
In order to be more supportive.
Okay.
Sometimes they're not, they, whatever. It doesn't hurt to have bodies, does it? It's not there. It doesn't hurt to have a body. But if you have a special meeting, if you have a meeting finance, which I'm assuming you're going to have someone, certainly let me know. Be aware of it so I can show up for it. On that, obviously, I'm there to be supportive of whatever you come up with. But it'd be nice to see what our actual budget is.
And when I looked back at past meetings, I know last year, our 2024 September meeting was a little bit later in the month. So I think that helped to have all of the budget pieces together to be able to present at that particular meeting. And then in years past, it looks like we've done special meetings. We've done kind of a blend where, it's either been at the September meeting or perhaps a special meeting. I can't speak, affirmatively as to what Heidi will look to do.
I suspect she'll have a little pencil out, she'll come back to you and say, we gotta change this, and then when you come to us, it's probably pretty much finalized and good to go with. Well, Heidi's the main person, finance just sits there and looks at what Heidi tells them, and then, I know they can vote on making changes, but I presume everything is pretty much in line.
She's got a good handle on it.
Yeah, she's aware of the dollars and cents. She's always has.
Yeah.
All these years, she's been very good. Sometimes the finance committee doesn't listen to her. And I said that in public, sorry. But sometimes they don't listen to her. Yeah, so that's why we need to be supportive when we come to committees. Show some more support for them. So, yeah, I'm open for that. If we have to have a special meeting, just make us aware of it. See what we can do for that.
I thought perhaps depending on where the special meeting would land, that maybe that's an opportunity to bring October agenda items onto that agenda if they're shorter, and then maybe we don't have an October meeting to try to just balance it out.
That would be nice.
Just horrible.
Anything else, Mary, at all?
No, nothing more.
All right. Any questions at all for Mary? On that? Any for the supervisors that we have here? We do have a conference coming up, fall conference for us. Yeah, so
The big county one that's all inclusive for everything county,
Dells, yeah.
not specifically DHS.
No. But yeah. And I think last year, I shared with you what the various workshops were.
Yes.
And I actually went to a few of those to see if there was anything worthwhile to bring back. I don't know if I brought anything back, but at least it gives us an opportunity to maybe get some information. It was a little disappointing last year. It was, but anyhow, it is what it is. Anything else that we have? Any of the citizen members have anything that you want to comment on? Or they're going to? If not, we certainly would entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Motion is made to adjourn. Is there a second to that? We'll do a second to be safe on it. Okay, Smile down there. Doctor, seconds it. 2 seconds it. We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you very much this evening for being here.
See you again.
Yeah, just you too.
It's been a lot of discussion.
I told Laura the
Well,
last time she
German?
did a presentation.
And I worked
Schools.
with Robert's
At
rules.
the end,
Oh, shit.
she talked about foster care. She said like, he wants to be a foster parent. All these teachers. It was